Okay, ready? Okay, let us begin with the metta practice. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother who risks her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, lying down, or awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. With this metta thought, let us begin our mindfulness practice. We pay our attention to our breathing. As we breathe in, I'm just reminding you these instructions I give every day, and they may sound very repetitive, and sometimes if you are not mindful they can even be boring. But if we are very seriously focusing our mind on the practice of mindfulness, these instructions, these words, help us to remind our practice. So let us pay attention to our breath. Notice the breath touching our nostrils and expanding our lower abdomen and chest area as we breathe in. As we breathe out, lower abdomen contract, chest area contract, and the breath leaves our nostrils. These are invariable repetition every day. Without these 3 points, we cannot notice. When we notice, we can notice these 3 points with the breath. If you don't pay attention, of course, that is the different thing. When we breathe out and in, we also notice 2 pauses. One at the end of inhaling, and the other is at the end of exhaling. So, noticing them, they happen naturally. We don't have to make any special effort. Then we notice the feeling of breath. We perceive the breath mentally, and we are paying attention intentionally, and we are conscious or aware of the breathing. As we know, when we breathe in, our feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness change. When we breathe out, different feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness arise and then fade away. Always consciousness, feeling, perception, thought arise and pass away. Arise and vanish. Appear and disappear. This is very natural occurrence. That is why we use the breath to see this happening very clearly, easily. There are other things also for us to pay attention to, but they are not this clear as the breath. And then as we see them changing constantly, mind does not attempt to hold on to anything because they are coming and going. Trying to hold on to anything is an futile, fruitless, futile effort. Then the desire, clinging, craving naturally fades away. And then the mind becomes relaxed, body becomes relaxed, breath becomes relaxed. In this relaxed state, loving friendliness, we begin to feel. We begin to feel loving friendliness, which is in our life, in our mind, in a rudimentary form. And that becomes very prominent when body and mind and the breath are relaxed. And then our what you call uptightness, rigidity, resentment fades away. And then as a result, when metta feeling arises, also naturally we become aware of our practice for all suffering beings and us. There compassion arises in our mind. Compassion normally does not arise without an object. Only when we see or know or hear suffering beings, compassion arises. Then restlessness and worry fades away. And then because of this, joy arises, and at that time sleepiness and drowsiness fade away. And then we have no doubt in our mind with regard to the results of our practice. We can experience them immediately. That is the nature of Dhamma, akalika, effective, not affected by time, immediately effective, right as we practice, that very moment we experience these things. That is the nature of Dhamma. Even though we practice meditation, meditation also is Dhamma, mind object, and then doubt fades away. When we see this reality, doubt fades away. When this happens, when greed, resentment, restlessness and worry, sleepiness and drowsiness, and doubt fade away, then joy, happiness arises. Happiness naturally leads to tranquility and concentration. When we gain concentration, we don't become like a vegetable. The mind is very clearly active. Active in a very wholesome way, not just wasting energy, but the mind becomes active in seeing all this happening. None of them stay, all of them appear and disappear. Even joy, happiness, concentration, all of them appear and disappear. And concentration is the concentration of impermanence. Because we see from the very beginning, inhaling, exhaling, feeling and so on, everything we feel, we notice is changing. So that is so powerful that everything, yeah, the changes or impermanence dominate entire practice. The mind does not have a choice but becoming aware of these changes, and then naturally everything narrows down to awareness of impermanence. That is how we gain concentration, and there we see very subtle, very profound, deepest changes taking place in our body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness as they appear and disappear. You cannot avoid that unless you don't pay attention to it. So I like all of us to stay in that awareness the next few minutes. Dukkha patta ca nidukkha, bhaya patta ca nibhaya, soka patta ca nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this metta wish at the background, I like to continue the talk on dependent origination, and we came to various, we passed various stages, and we were talking on how to overcome cankers, influxes, or taints or asavas using Sabbha Asava Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, which gives 7 ways of overcoming asavas. In order for you to remember, I like to recapitulate the 7 steps very briefly, only by name. First is what you call dasana. Second is sangvara. Dasana means seeing. Sangvara is restraint. Third is using patisevana. Fourth, parivajana. Fifth, vinodana. Parivajana means avoiding. Vinodana also letting go when it arises in our mind. Then adhivasana is patience, that is the 6th. Then last is bhavana. Bhavana, we mention 7 enlightenment factors: mindfulness, investigation, effort, tranquility, uh, and what do you call joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. These are the 7 factors. of enlightenment. We were discussing on investigation. Among these 7, we were talking on investigation. I gave the ways of the nourishment of investigation, supporting factors of investigation. And these are very important for us to remember. When we cultivate this, there is a very beautiful simile used Venerable Sariputta. The one way is supporting, nourishing the root of the fact of enlightenment of investigation is repetition. We all know one unmistakable way of remembering something is the repetition. We repeat it again and again and again. And that we know from our own practice. My personal experience, I am pretty sure you also have the same personal experience, that when you repeat something again and again, that stays in your mind. That is called bhavana. Repeating. Okay, that is how we nourish the root of the fact of enlightenment, fact of investigation. When Venerable Sariputta was explaining this, he says, Venerable Sariputta said, whenever he wanted to dwell in mindfulness factor of enlightenment in the fact of enlightenment in the morning, he dwells in that fact of enlightenment in the morning. If he wanted to spend the time dwelling in the enlightenment factor of investigation of the Dhamma in the afternoon, he spent the time in that factor of enlightenment. This is how he practiced the factor of enlightenment, all of them. I just mentioned only the fact of enlightenment of investigation. He also gives another simile, just like a king. King has his walking closet, or maybe living, like a living room, full of clothes, all kinds of suits for every occasion. Whenever he wants to wear a new set of clothes, even if every hour he can change, because he has so much suit. I remember somebody in certain country had certain person had 3,000 pairs of shoes to wear. And similarly, these days you have, if you can afford to have huge closet full of clothes, and you wear whatever you want to wear at any time you like. Similarly, when you practice the fact of enlightenment, because the purpose of practicing this enlightenment factor is to perfect them. In order to perfect, you have to repeat it again and again. So, these factors also like that. Whenever you want, you just like, it's like playing with these factors of enlightenment. It is such a joy to practice it. However, when sluggishness and sleepiness, drowsiness arise, then we must practice the factor of enlightenment, factor of investigation. When you keep investigating, or the factor of enlightenment, factor of energy, or the enlightenment factor of joy, when you practice this, we have not explained all these things in detail, but I just want to mention, you have to practice them. One of those energizing fact of enlightenment is called investigation. You know very well when you do some research in a lab, you have a target and you want to do the job, and you don't want to get up, you don't feel like eating, resting, you just do that same thing, checking, and so forth. That is perhaps what many pharmaceutical companies may be doing these days to come up with coronavirus vaccine. Remember that I just as a simile. So, steps for investigation are these. I just mentioned the nourishing factors, supporting factors, and now I want to mention the steps. Steps. Step number one, in Pali it is called Ohita Soto Dhammang Sunati. Ohita Sota means bending your ears. Sota is ear. Ohita means bending, focusing the ears on the Dhamma. Listen. Of course, there has to be some stuff in the mind to investigate. If you want to practice this, you have to learn Dhamma, listen to Dhamma, discuss Dhamma, and pay total attention to it and remember it. Remember it. Oh, it is of Dhamma. So number two is remembering. Sutta Dhamman dhareti. When you listen mindfully, you learn it. When you pay attention and learn, then it will stay in your mind. That is the purpose of listening mindfully. And then, once you have memorized, then you investigate the meaning of what you have studied. That is called Dhātānaṁ Dhammānaṁ Atthaṁ Upaparikrati. Atta means meaning, Upaparikan means investigate, check, keep questioning of what you have studied. Then, when you question and examine the meaning, what happens? As the meaning becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, your body becomes very tranquil. That is relaxing, body relaxing. I think this Pali word is pasambhana. Many people who know Satipatthana Sutta, pasambhayankaya sankarang asisami sikati, in Anapanasati Sutta, pasambhaya means relaxing, tranquilly. So, when we examine the meaning, as the meaning becomes clearer and clearer in your mind, you don't get excited, but you become more and more calm, relaxed, and peaceful. Even your body, even your body becomes calm, relaxed, and peaceful. Then, when the body is calm, then Buddha said, Pasadakayo piti jayati. Piti means joy, arises in the mind. Then, when the mind is full of joy, pleasure or happiness arises. Piti manasa sukhang jayati. When the mind is full of joy, happiness arises. The difference between joy and happiness I mentioned earlier is joy is in anticipation of the goal or better results, joy arises. Happiness is fulfilling your expectation. When you are full of happiness, I repeat this very often from the Buddha's teaching. When the mind is happy, when you are full of happiness, sukhino chittang samadhyati. When the one who is full of happy, his or that person's mind becomes concentrated. Samadhyati. Samadhi means concentration. Samahitang chittang yata bhutam pajanati. When the mind is concentrated, that concentrated mind can see things as they really are. Remember, friends, this concentration, as we mentioned many times, does not make you like a vegetable, like a rock, without motion, without knowing, without anything. This concentration is the concentration of seeing things as they really are. When you see things as they really are, I mean, this concentration arises from happiness, and that concentration arising from happiness can see things as they really are. Seeing things as they really are is active mental state. Active mental state. What do we see as they really are? We see only impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness. I mentioned this many times. They are the signs of all existing things. They are called Tilakkhana, three characteristics of all existing things. Some of them are very conspicuous, very clear, obvious. Others are hidden, but after a long time we can see them also impermanent, unsatisfactory, and without self. And that we can see within us any time we gain good concentration. When we gain good concentration, we can see impermanence, we can see unsatisfactoriness, we can see selflessness. Unsatisfactoriness may not be very clear. Whenever whatever is impermanent does not stay in our, we have no way to control it. That is actually why psychologists, I think all psychologists will agree with me, they cannot investigate their own the mind without getting prejudice, without even if they use any most powerful instrument, powerful microscope and so on, still they cannot make the mind stay still because it is moving. When something is moving very quickly, you cannot hold it, grasp it, because the grasping or holding is just a mere thought. It can never be implemented. And that is unsatisfactoriness. It makes you frustrated. You try to hold on to it, it slips away. So that makes you frustrated. That is suffering. So impermanence necessarily makes you unhappy, unsatisfactory. And of course, selflessness entails when something is impermanent, unsatisfactory, there is nothing to control that particular thing. So, All this happened when you have gained concentration. That is called, Buddha called samahitam chittang yatha bhutam pajanati. Concentrated mind sees things as they really are. Then what happened? Uh, Nibbindati. Nibbida, nibbida is disenchantment. Uh, you become disenchanted, not with with upset, with anger, but your previous expectation is no longer there when you see the truth as it is. So, when in disenchantment or what you call nibbida arises, mind does not hold on to it at all. That is called viraga. Raga is grasping. That is another name for tanha. Here raga is fading away like a color. If you have a picture drawn in watercolor, if a drop of water falls onto it, that becomes disfigured and it is mushy. You cannot see the contour, the clear picture. Similarly, this when we have disenchantment and disenchantment and dispassion arises. That is called virag, dispassion. When dispassion arises, mind releases, liberate. That's called vimutti. These are the steps that follow when we do investigation. When we do investigation, eventually, because of the beginning of investigation, our practice ends in liberation. Liberation. So, that is why the Buddha said in the even in Sabba Sutta, Manasikaraniya Dhamma Manasikatabba, Amanasikaraniya Dhamma Amanasikatabba. That is, we must remember the factors of enlightenment as fact of enlightenment. If something else enters the mind, then we must reject it. That means we must keep in mind what helps us to attain liberation. We keep it in mind and we cultivate it, repeat it again and again, because our goal is to liberate ourselves from suffering, from repetition of birth and death. In Alagaddu Sutta, also in Majjhima Nikaya, Buddha gave a simile of two similes. One is a simile of rat, other is simile of snake. Simile of rat means we use the rat only to liberate us from samsara. Similarly, in is explained, suppose you are traveling, you come across a body of water and there is no bridge or no boat, so you collect various twigs and branches and leaves and so forth, and you tie them together with some fiber collected from the trees and vines and so forth, and tie them together, and then you get onto it with the help of your hands and legs, making effort. You use the raft only for you to float. and hands and legs help you to swim and to cross the body of water. After crossing the body of water, you don't carry the raft, thinking that you must show your gratitude to the raft. Rather, you leave the raft on the shore or let it float in the water and go free. So similarly, we use investigation not to hang on to anything. We investigate the Dhamma, the truth, not to hold on to it, not to use it for your argument with somebody or to show off how much you know and so forth, but to cross over this samsaric suffering. This is this is the teaching of the Buddha. There is another very beautiful discourse, everybody knows it by name, which I want to mention here. I don't have time to explain it, but in brief, I must say, this is called Ratha Vinita Sutta. Ratha Vinita. Relay chariot simile. Discourse on relay chariot. In games you have relay, running. It is Venerable Punna Mantaniputta explained it to Venerable Sariputta. And anyway, the discourse is very profound. He used purification, 7 stages of purification. The Sila Visuddhi, Chitta Visuddhi, Ditti Visuddhi, Kanka Visuddhi, Patipada Jnanadarsana, Jnanadarsana Visuddhi, Jnanadarsana Visuddhi, Patipada Jnanadarsana Visuddhi, and so forth, 7. Venerable Sariputta asked Venerable Mantaniputta, does the purification of sila, morality, the purpose of the Buddha's, the purpose of our monastic life? Yes, the purpose of monastic life is to purify our morality. Punnamanta and Buddha said no. And then he asked next one, purification of chitta, mind. Is that the purpose of our living a monastic life? Venerable Punnamantaniputra said no. For each question, Venerable Sariputta asked him whether we live monastic life for this and this. Each time Venerable Punnamantaniputra said no, no, no. Then finally Venerable Sariputta asked, then why do we observe, why do we live under the Buddha following his instructions? He said, it's a very long, beautiful discourse. I don't want to spoil it by picking things from here and there. I just want to mention the final goal that Punnamantana Sutta mentioned. The steps of these 7 purification leads to the next purification. Every previous purification leads to the next purification. And that ends, finally, leads to liberating us from suffering. Anupada Parinibbanattaya, for the attainment of liberation without clinging or holding on to anything. So he gave a simile to make it even clear. He says, suppose there is a king, there was a king. Kosala. Suppose the king Kosala want to go from Kosala to Saketa, to another city. He has a very swift, quick running chariot. The horse driven chariot, and he get into that, and that horse runs as fast as he can, like a race, and goes to the next place, and there is another horse that also is very, very fast. So king immediately get up, get into the next chariot, and then that horse also drag it, runs it very quickly. Like that, each horse will run all the way, dragging the chariot until he reaches the goal. And then his friends and relatives who gathered to welcome him would ask him, Your Majesty, did you come all the way from your city to this city by this chariot? He said, No. Then he has to explain. You remember relay, in the game, when you run on relay contest. Similarly, one step helps the development of the next step, and that is how we end our liberation. So, what is the liberation? Liberation from suffering that we can achieve by following the truth all the way without stopping, and yet we have to keep running. Keep running. If we become lazy and postpone it, we never reach the goal, and we will lose the game. Just remember the tortoise and rabbit story. We don't like to be a rabbit. If we want to reach the goal, we must be like a tortoise. He slowly reach the goal. Rabbit thought, I am fast as this. What is this tortoise? He is so slow. So the rabbit slept under a tree. He had a good sleep. Some meditators are like that. They think, well, I can actually practice meditation, let me have a good sleep. Others continue to practice, and eventually they reach the goal. So friends, I have not finished this talk on practicing factors of enlightenment. Anyway, with this I want to end this morning's talk, and thank you very much for listening to this, participating in this meditation. And we all had one goal in our mind in this particular practice, that is a mundane goal, but that is not the last goal. That is the base camp. When you climb Himalayas, Mount Everest. That is, we want to wish all those who are suffering from COVID-19 be free from that suffering and return to their normal health and continue their life with good health. And those who are suffering or mourning and grieving the death of their loved ones, we want to wish them to recover from that very soon, especially through the practice of meditation and learning Dhamma and knowing the truth that Buddha has taught us. and others are doctors, nurses, and so forth taking care of these patients in hospitals. And unfortunately, many elderly people in nursing homes are the very quick victims of this coronavirus, and they also are taken care of by nurses and doctors, and we want them to continue their wonderful service to save their lives, these people's lives, and continue their compassionate, selfless service. And there are others who are supporting them financially and otherwise. May they continue their wonderful service. And finally, there are many leaders who are doing wonderful job. Some leaders are not that wise. So we want them to be wise, to make a right decision with understanding, compassionate decision, and wise decision. With this very earnest wish, let me conclude this morning's session. Thank you for participating in this practice.